Hey everybody, it's Alan. I'm sorry. I'm in a mood. So on the 17th of April, I took this buttercup. And look, it's flowering. It's so beautiful. And it is a very pretty flower. And I took this buttercup and I turned it into a future bunjin. And in that video, I had let it dry out profoundly. I mean, like crazy. Where all the leaves were just in total wilt. And it was almost hard to think that it could recover. So I did an update video the very next day on the 18th of April after having watered it really, really well. And it popped back beautifully. And I knew it would. And there's a couple different buttercups that grow in Florida. I don't think this is the native buttercup. This is the, exotic, invasive, whatever. But buttercups in my yard are just weeds. I don't really, except for this one, promote them or do anything, and they just show up. So a weed can be defined a number of different ways. When we think of a weed, obviously we think of something like crabgrass or dandelions, something that detracts from the beauty of another plant. You pull weeds in your flower gardens. But let's say you have a whole bed of petunias and an acorn germinates. So now you have an oak tree seedling in your petunias. Well, by the definition of a weed being a plant in the wrong place, because that's another definition, that oak tree seedling is a weed. And you're probably going to pull it because you don't want an oak tree in your petunias. So this guy just germinated in this pot. And if we look, you'll see how far off center it is. I mean, it's ridiculously off center, which is pretty positive proof that it just did it all by itself. Most humans, when they put a plant in a pot like this, they try to get it right in the center. And it grew for a certain length of time, and then I thought, I'm just going to play. I was going to play with this thing. So I wired it all up, and I gave it a little bit of a sweep, and I didn't really do anything with the branches. And now it's looking pretty funky. It really is. I mean, how in the world, one huge part of bonsai that you try to avoid is parallel branches. And I have 4 of them. Here, let's bend this guy into place so he's perfectly. 4 parallel branches all on the same side. And of course, we could wire this one back, and we could wire this guy back. We no longer have parallel branches, but anyway, it's pretty comical. And I've done nothing to it. I haven't trimmed it. I haven't done any training with it other than sticking those 2 branches in the back just now. So that's what I'm going to do today. I still think this tree, even though it looks really ugly now, could be a real cool bunjin tree. I just really think it could. And it's definitely distinctive because it's got the yellow flowers. I suppose that you could actually create like an informal upright or maybe a slanting style. But the problem is they just don't thicken. You can see this tree here, even though it's been a couple of years now, the trunk is maybe as thick around as a pencil. And then when we get up here, it's still thick around as a pencil. So I guess if I let all this little excess growth elongate, we could get some trunk thickness. Or conversely, chop it way back down into here and grow a much smaller tree. You could get some taper. But this is just kind of playing around, so that's all right. I'm okay with that. I hope you are too. So what does this tree need to get it back to being to have some kind of future as a bunjin? Well, for one thing, we've been having a tremendous amount of rain, and I do believe that the really wet soil has allowed the tree to just fall over. It was much more upright, and if we look at the roots, can I do this? You see, it's just really loose in there. So then, do we just leave it as slanting, or do we try to bring it back more upright? Boom. I'm not sure. And then, of course, the copious amounts of rain has created a whole bunch of new growth. And some of it's possibly in the right place, but the vast majority of it is just wild and rangy and crazy. And then I'm probably going to remove the wire. The entire tree is wired except for all the new growth. So this guy here isn't wired, and that's because that has all emerged since the initial styling on the 17th of April. All this stuff out here is all brand new growth, all brand new growth. So I'm going to take the wire off, then I'm going to cut it way back, get rid of all of this, because a bunjin tree by design has no growth, at least up to 50%, and usually more like 75%. So 50% to 75% of the trunk, and sometimes even more than that, is bare on a bunjin, also called a literati. They are synonymous. So that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to play. I'm going to take the flowers off too, and so once I've done that, taken all the excess growth off and all the wire off, then we can kind of see what I want to do. I think in the original video I talked about leaving way too many branches, and that at some point I was going to have to decide to remove some of them. So I will probably do that too. And like I just said, a bunjin typically has all the branches way up on top, so I will probably remove maybe even these three. 1, 2, 3. And typically what I'll do is I'll remove this one and then see what it looks like, and then remove the next one, and so on. And so there we go. Take all the new growth off, take the wires off. I'm not entirely sure that the wire has set, that the branches have set, but we can put the wire on it again, and I'm actually seeing some signs of the wire cutting into the bark on the main trunk. Just barely, it's looking real tight. On the auxiliary branches, I don't see much evidence of that at all, but definitely on the main trunk. So, take off the excess growth, and then remove the wire, and then we'll see what we're up against. Uh-oh, getting windy. We're supposedly looking at a certain amount of rain. So first of all, I'm just going to shorten, basically take off all the new growth. Actually, I may leave the apex like that. I was going to shorten some of these down to nothing, and that's a brand new piece that never had wire, but it could possibly become part of the design. And right away, just doing this makes it look so much nicer. And I don't want any of this stuff, and I can probably just rub this stuff off with my fingers. I don't think buttercups really ever get what you call wood. They do get a little woody, but it's not real wood. And then we have a lot of little tiny stuff like here. And for some reason I didn't get the back branches. Okay, I'm going to take these big leaves off here. Alright. So, it went from a giant overgrown rangy looking thing to a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. Well, okay. And I'm an unwirer, so let us begin. And where are we here? I may actually need to bring it closer to me. Preliminary findings indicate that it has set into place pretty well, at least the main trunk. And actually I'm going to take these branches, these long branches, and I'm going to take them way back into here. Because that's really the only way you're ever going to get ramification. If you noticed, actually most of the longer stuff is over here. So let's go get that. So, you know, on the 17th when I cut it back, all the new growth came from the end. It didn't come from down here. There were little tiny little bits of new growth that had emerged along the trunk. But for the most part, all of the growth came from the end of the branch. So you're never going to get any ramification into here. And even bunjin trees, even though they're very loose and open, very few branches, you want those branches to have some ramification. And the only way to get ramification on something like this is cut every branch way back. Then it's going to split, and then split again, and then split again, and then split again, and that's how you get the ramification. There's a little bit of the wire cutting into the bark. Of course, the correct terminology is the bark growing into the wire. The wire pretty much stays in place. And typically when I take wire off, I sort of kind of straighten it out a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I will straighten it out even more before I put it into my box. I have a box of wire. I need to move this guy around so I can see what I'm doing over here. And even though I, label this thing as just playing, I really think it can be a pretty cool tree, especially with the flowers. I'm envisioning a really nice bunjin with a really cool top, and then the flowers. It could actually be quite beautiful. And I certainly didn't start out saying, I'm going to take a buttercup and I'm going to turn it into a bonsai. But this one germinated, and the plant that was in here, I don't even remember. But it died. So it was just sitting there, and the buttercup kept growing away, and I was looking at it, and I thought, why not give it a try? So that's where we're at with this guy. certainly, well, I don't know how you even propagate buttercups. You just let them show up and then yank them out of the ground. If I wanted to do some more buttercup as bonsai. Like I said though, they're very difficult to get any kind of taper. And I am correct. There is some scarring on the bark from the wire. So I'm glad I took it off. It's not horrible, but it probably won't even be noticeable because it sort of is moving with the trunk, but you can see it has definitely scarred up and down. And that's just what, a month and a half? The original video was the 17th of April. And then the update video was the 18th of April, just because I watered it and I want to show you that it was going to survive. And of course I knew it would because I've seen buttercups in my yard wilt profoundly. I mean, just like, once again, just as bad as when I worked on this tree. And I did that on purpose, actually. I chose not to water it until it wilted to the level that it was. And I've already said this thing doesn't really produce any wood, but on your woody trees, it's convention to let them dry out a little. Of course, that can be a tricky endeavor too, before you're going to wire, because then less water in the branches means they're less turgid, more easily bent. But that's a balancing act between letting it dry up to make wiring easier and letting it dry up too much and have the tree suffer the consequences. So I am correct. Tree has wire scars, the trunk at least, not the branches. There's maybe a tiny little bit, but they're all coming off anyway. But the trunk does have some wire scars. Nothing that a little time can't rectify. Okay. So where are we? I still want the front to be here. And it actually straightened itself back up. So I think the combination of the weight of the wire plus the weight of all the excess growth. Because wasn't it like down like this when I started? And now look at it. It's actually sprung back up pretty much the way I had it in the first place, in the first video. Okay, now if Charlie Brown was here, which limbs would he take off? Well, thank God it's not a Halloween video. Because you remember what Halloween, right? When they go trick-or-treating. Charlie Brown's famous line, "We got a rock." Poor guy. So I'm going to take this one off. And then see. It still has leaves. No leaves. There. We still have this parallel branch, and this one's on the inside of the curve. So I'm just going to take him off too. And down into there, down into there. That looks pretty good. We're missing a bunch in the back here. There's nothing back here at all. If we come like this, you see just zero. Not even something I can pull back. So like this guy could become a back branch like that. Could be wired back. A branch and a branch and a branch. But nothing back here. So it will sprout just the same way it sprouted way down here. So now I'm going to cut it way back. Cut everything way back. And start the ramification. There we go. Charlie Brown would be really proud of me now. I remember Ed Trout, who was a fairly famous bonsai artist in Florida. Really great guy. He came to a demonstration and he talked about, if you have a limb like this and you just cut it way out here, you're never going to get ramification. It just is not going to happen. You got to cut stuff way back, just like this. I talk about Jim Smith a lot because he was my mentor. He was the most gracious, gentle bonsai person that I ever met. Just an amazing man. And we would have field trips to his nursery. And he would take a giant Ficus nervifolia. I've got some crummy ones here. There's not only crummy, but totally full of weeds. But he would take a huge one, okay? Trunk like this. 2 feet high. Limbs out 2 feet. Just a massive tree. But it was in training. And by the time he was finished, he had taken everything off down to there and left just like 3 limbs. So the beginners, pretty much like this one right here. Most of the beginners were just in awe, just shocked. It's like, oh my God, what has he done? And of course, what he had done was he had started a plant in training that was just being grown for trunk thickness and no branch placement of any kind or anything like that. And he started its life as a bonsai. Took everything off, left just the bare minimum of the first 3 branches, first branch, second branch, back branch. And then from there, the person that wins it gets to enjoy developing it into a finished tree. And he did that every single time we ever went there. And we went there twice a year for many years. Sadly, he passed away in 2016. Guys, coming up on 10 years. But he had the foresight to donate his collection to the Heathcote Botanical Garden. So if you're ever in Florida and you want to be totally blown away by somebody's bonsai collection, go see Jim Smith's collection at the Heathcote Botanical Garden. And I actually have a video that I did last October of his collection. And it's just phenomenal. I think I'll leave a link at the end of this. So, I think the term that most people would probably agree with of what I did with this tree from the first few seconds of this video to what it looks like now would most appropriately be called drastic. And if you're new to bonsai, please subscribe to my channel and you'll be able to watch this guy do its thing. It's probably going to take 2 or 3 years for it now to come back out, and then when it comes out 4 or 5 inches, I'll cut it back again and just leave a little tiny piece of that old growth. So where are we again? Let's see if I can get some of that old growth back, that new growth. Where's a good example? Okay. So I took all this off. And let's say it was like right there. Okay, so now this branch grows to this branch again. Then I'm going to take all of this off to here and just leave this little tiny bit. But you will, like we see here, I cut it there and 3 pieces came out. So that's what will happen. These 3 pieces will come out and then I'll cut all of them. So then I have some ramification. I have 1 branch here and then I have 2 or even 3. And then when that little piece here, then it's going to grow from here. But you've got 3 of them now. So then when those grow out here, then you cut it back again. And so now you've got that one little piece, and then you've got this piece, and now you've got even more ramification because those 2 now split into another 2. And so if we look from above, we go like this, and then we go like this, and then we go like this, and more and more and more ramification. That's the definition of ramification, a branch that splits and then splits again and splits again and splits again. And if you study displays of really nice finished trees, you know, look at the ramification on the branches. Bonsai really has very few branches, and all the foliage is on those branches, and there's very little incidental stuff on the trunk. But then those branches split and split again and split again and split again and split again, and that's how you get your pads. That's how you get the image that you're looking for in a bonsai. So this is just like Jim Smith's first chop of his giant ficus. This is the beginnings now of the ramification. And I probably should have done this in April, and I would be that much further along. But I kind of wanted to keep the length just to see what it would look like. And this thing is a weed. It's going to pop like crazy. It's probably going to pop all up and down the trunk again too, because the tree is sending energy up into the branches. And now that there isn't any, it's probably going to pop all over the place. And then my job as the designer is to, once again, once the little guys pop up here, take all that off. You don't want that? Leave it. Take it. And then as things begin to elongate, then there's a process of which ones do I want to keep and which ones do I want to take off. And eventually this tree will have branches that swoop way down again. They'll swoop way down the way I had it wired. I really find it very interesting that after I took the wire and the excess growth off, that it popped right back. Wasn't it like this when we started? I swear it was. So anyway, there we go. Buttercup. And I think I took the flowers off. And it may not get flowers again for quite some time. And the flowers are probably going to be a very cool feature of the finished tree. But that might be a couple years from now, easily. And so bonsai is always looking to the future, looking to the future. What do I have now? What can I do to improve the form? And then how can I develop it in the future? So since I showed you one of those incredibly ugly Ficus nervifolia, I may actually do a video on those guys. And they're going to get a very similar treatment to this. Basically chop down to almost nothing and then begin the structure of the tree from there. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate everyone that has subscribed. And I don't know how far buttercups grow as far as their range. Like I said in the very beginning of this video, I do believe there is actually a native buttercup, and then there's an exotic, quote-unquote invasive, and that's what this one is. This one is the non-native buttercup. And I thought it would be fun to play with. So, thank you so much for watching.